But 1819 was a perfect year to be built, because the next year, 1820, was the first year that the yellow fever hit Savannah. The yellow fever is a particularly nasty disease. The yellow fever will leave you pale and emaciated. Your kidneys give out, you become jaundiced, hence the yellow fever. The whites of your eyes will turn yellow, and you'll bleed out. Almost every orifice of your body will bleed. Eyes, ears, nose, gums, all gushing blood. Your gums will actually become so weak your teeth fall right out. And you go into violent, writhing convulsions, shaking uncontrollably until you die. Of course, it will kill you. It's a death sentence, especially in 1820. And if all that wasn't bad enough, in the very final stages of the fever, you would throw up a thick black bile fluid. I used to call the yellow fever the black vomit. I just didn't understand it. I didn't know where it came from. I didn't understand that the way you got the yellow fever was that you were being bitten by a mosquito carrying the sickness. So it's actually a lot like malaria. But we didn't know that in 1820. It was all just one big mystery. Now, the thing is that in 1820, they believed that the yellow fever was some plague sent to Savannah to smite the wicked for the sins of the city. So that's rather Old Testament, but I mean, really, they might not have been too far off in thinking that. Because back in 1820, Savannah was a much smaller city, only a few thousand people. The thing is that the yellow fever really hit hard. In 1820, Savannah was only a few thousand people. The exact death toll to the person, the exact number of dead in 1820 from the yellow fever, I kid you not, was 666 people. And most of those yellow fever victims died right here at Candler Hospital. And whether you believe that 666 is the number of the beast or not, certainly that's a whole lot of people who died from one epidemic in 1 year. Now, the thing is that here at Candler Hospital, they didn't anticipate you getting better when you got here with the fever. They knew that you came here to die. That was the end. They had a lot of weird treatments to try and treat the fever. Oftentimes they would cut open your veins and bleed out the bad blood. You can imagine how well that worked. And also they would make the yellow fever victims drink liquid black tar. That would actually kill you before the fever ever would. I guess you wouldn't have the fever anymore, would you? Now, the thing is that here at Candler Hospital, they would chain the bodies to the bed with iron chains. That way, when you inevitably would writhe around and convulse from the fever, at least you wouldn't convulse too much. When they knew it was going to happen to you, but they really more or less made no bones about it. They didn't imagine or entertain this idea that you were going to get better. You were coming here to die. But people were so terrified of the fever that in 1820, the city of Savannah made it illegal to bury anyone in the city's cemeteries. They're afraid that if you buried a yellow fever victim, if you buried their body in the ground, the sick fumes and vapors would rise up from decaying corpses, rise up and reinfect the living population. Now, what was Candler Hospital to do that? With hundreds of dead yellow fever victims on their hands. Well, they decided to build a crypt underground, a tomb, to stash all these bodies in. So, they built a tunnel underneath this hospital which stretched all the way under Forsyth Park. When we walked to that park, we were indeed walking right over top of where that tunnel still exists. They brought the bodies through the tunnel, and they brought them to this underground crypt. They stacked them inside, floor to ceiling, one right on top of the other. Most people have no idea this strange underground crypt where all these yellow fever victims were stashed is still in Forsyth Park. This crypt still exists, just feet beneath that pretty white fountain. That fountain that lots of people like to go and visit and have their picture taken by or get married by. Most fools don't know that just feet beneath it are hundreds of yellow fever victims still entombed nearly 200 years later. Now, Candler Hospital here was in operation from 1819 to 1980, a long time. Between all those years, it served a number of purposes. It was not only the yellow fever hospital, it was indeed also the insane asylum. At one point, this building was simultaneously the yellow fever hospital, the insane asylum, the general hospital, and the local poorhouse. Yeah. So they must have decided, let's get rid of everybody we don't like, the sick, the crazy, and the poor, and just shove them in one building and forget about them. But I don't think that has made for a very positive, energetic atmosphere. If anything, I think there's a very sad feeling about Candler Hospital. And we have to remember the 1800s and right up through the 1960s, this was not a time in history that was particularly kind to anyone who suffered any sort of mental abnormality. Now, back then, when medicine was still young, we didn't understand things that we understand now. Back then, depression, bipolar disorder, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, Tourette's. All these things were just called madness. They didn't want to deal with it. You were insane. Oftentimes, your family didn't want to deal with you if you were different. So they would have shoveled you off to a place like this and just let you rot here. Just because you were different, you were not socially acceptable. So your family would have locked you up in here and just forgotten about you. That would have solved that problem altogether. So imagine that. If there would have been hundreds, thousands of individuals, hardly any different from you or I, who would have called this place home, the only home they ever knew. I would imagine when we do die, if our spirit has to hang out here on earth for much longer, why would that spirit go back or visit somewhere that it didn't know about? It wouldn't. The spirit would go to somewhere it did know. It would go home if it could. I think that's why there's so much activity here, because so many individuals have returned to the only home that they ever knew. Now, in 1980, this place shut down, and the police have more or less made this their domain now. They come here and they make sure that there are no homeless people sneaking inside to sleep or kids getting in to vandalize or explore. Every time the police come here, they say their phones go dead, their radios won't work. Oftentimes, once they get inside, there's no way to contact the outside world. In fact, I had a chat with one police officer one night who told me he was stranded inside for 4 hours one night with no way out. He said all his equipment was dead, he was all alone, he was trying to make his way to a window just to yell outside, couldn't even do that. He said this place was playing tricks on him, he was going round and round and round in circles, going down the same hallway 6, 7, 8 times. He was delirious by the end of it, he said. And a while ago I brought a tour group here, and there were about 4 or 5 policemen standing right up near this place. And one of them came right up to me and he said, "I wouldn't go near this place if I were you." And I said, "Well, why not? What do you mean?" "I always bring tour groups here." And he looked at me with all due seriousness. This is an older, rather conservative-looking guy. This was not what I expected to hear from him. He said to me, "Well, lately, we've been seeing the woman in white a little too often." I said, "Woman in white? Who in the world is she?" And he explained to me. He said, almost every night when someone was on duty here, at least one of the police officers would report having sighted a woman, who appears to be about 40 or so, wearing a white hospital gown, pacing back and forth in these top 2 left-hand windows right here, all the way up here on the far left. Strange that you should snap a picture of something in them.
And you're wearing white.
Yes, and you're wearing white, yeah. That's strange, yeah. So, they say that oftentimes this woman will walk right up to the window, press her hands up against the glass, look out as though she's waiting for someone, and they'll always have to send somebody in. They'll follow her into a room where there's no entrance or exit except the door they just walk through, and their room will be empty. They'll follow her down a hallway, or a dead-end hallway, just to watch her disappear, or sometimes walk right through a wall. They really have no idea who she is. Nor do I. All the police are convinced she's from the insane asylum days, whoever she is. I suppose that makes for a good story. But someone did tell me she might be someone who died here, whose body was never claimed. Maybe. That also seems likely. That might explain why she's still here with this expectant look on her face, just waiting. I'm going to stop right here for one quick second, because I need to say something which we actually did already talk about. Earlier this evening, we said almost everywhere we walk in Savannah, we will be walking over dead bodies, didn't we? Certainly that has been true all night. But nowhere is that more true than right now. Now, I suppose I forgot to tell you, for a while now we've been standing in one of the largest cemeteries in the entire city. This whole area, Calhoun Square here, beyond where the Esping House and church are over here, beyond where these houses over here are, all of this land was once the designated cemetery for the bodies of slaves, because it was outside of town. Now, once upon a time, the only people who were buried within the city limits of Savannah are those who were white and Protestant. Of course, that excluded the huge slave population, the large Catholic population, and the large Jewish population. In fact, that rule excluded the majority of people from being buried in town. Everybody else had to be buried outside of town. This was where they were dumping the slaves. Just one right on top of the other, without headstones, without decorum, just bringing them out here and just throwing them in. There are estimated numbers of anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 individuals buried beneath our feet right now. We will never truly know how big this cemetery once was. That's because in the 1850s, Savannah was expanding, Savannah was growing, and they wanted to put a square here.